Alright, welcome to the next video in our AZ-500 Azure Security Technologies exam study series. In this video we will be discussing about Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, or PIM. So this is one of the learning objectives in taking the AZ-500 exam. You should be able to configure and deploy roles using Privileged Identity Management. What are these roles? It will be Azure AD roles. We will be looking into that later on in this video, and we should be able to evaluate each PIM setting as it relates to your organization's security goal. Alright, without further ado, let's now move on and learn Privileged Identity Management. So before we tackle, or before we start learning PIM, there is a security concept where PIM will help you implement or actually enforce. This is what they called Zero Trust security model. So what does this say, or what does it mean? Before, probably 10 years ago, in the on-premises age of IT infrastructure, the most common security infrastructure that we see before is that, let's say this is your internal network and this is the internet. The most common solution that these security engineers have is to have a firewall that separates your internal network with the external. Now, when, let's say, you are a user within this internal network, what the on-premise security infrastructure states before is that once you go past this firewall, and if you are within this internal network, you are a trusted entity. So whether be it a user, a device, or let's say it's a service account within your internal network, you will always be a trusted computer. So what happens if, let's say, there's a hacker here and it managed to go past through firewall and actually able to control a device or infect a device? That means the hacker could laterally move within your internal network without actually being detected, or it will be actually seen as a trusted entity within your internal network. And guess what? That's not really good. So what happens now, since a lot of infrastructures are being moved into the cloud? So let's say this is now your Azure cloud. How are security engineers going to protect or probably harden the security model within your cloud infrastructure? So that's where the Zero Trust security model comes in. So what is Zero Trust model? Let me just clear this whiteboard. So Zero Trust model says never assume trust. But continuously verify. Continuously verify. So when a user or device and, let's say, a data all reside inside the organization's firewall, they were assumed to be trusted. So this assumed trust, that's on the, let's say this is the old, so everything here, user, device, or data, it's been assumed trust since they are within the trusted network. So this assumed trust allowed for easy lateral movement after a malicious hacker, let's say, infected this device and or compromised an endpoint. So instead of assuming everything behind the corporate firewall here is trusted, the zero trust model assumes breach and verifies each request as though it originates from an open network. So probably from its name itself, it names zero trust or no trust at all. So it doesn't trust anything, but it continuously verifies each request. So let's say this is your cloud, this is the user, and this user is trying to access some data in that server. It continuously authenticates this user, it verifies its identity, the authenticity of its identity, the integrity of its identity. So regardless where the request originates, it sees it like, oh, let's say this user is from an external network, so it will continuously verify that user's identity. So every access request is fully authenticated, authorized, and encrypted. So even they all reside in the same network, it will continuously authenticate, authorize, and encrypt those communications between resources. So that's a concept that PIM will actually help you enforce within your organization. Now let's now see PIM. Let's go to our Azure portal and let's actually try to configure a privileged identity management assignment or a role. So I think that's the best way in order to explain this concept within PIM. With this zero trust model, I don't think, or probably in the exam there will be some question about it, but I don't think they will actually dig deeper on this concept, because I think zero trust model is part of the cybersecurity expert, so that, if I'm not mistaken, so that's cybersecurity expert exam. If you look it up in the Microsoft certifications list, zero trust model is one of their topics in that specific exam. Right, so let's now move into our Azure portal. Okay, so we are here now in our Azure Active Directory portal. So in order to use privileged identity management, you need to have your Azure Active Directory Premium P2. So from our Azure Lab environment video, you can actually try, or you can buy one if you can afford it, but I do recommend activating the free trial for this license. Right, now going back to our Azure Active Directory portal. So once you have this PIM, or once you have the license, the first global admin to use PIM in your instance is automatically assigned the security admin or privileged role administrator in the directory. So bear in mind that only global admin, security admin, or privileged role admin can manage privileged identity management. So in order to go into privileged identity management blade, you can just type in here on the search bar privilege identity management. Now you will be directed into a new window, or if you can call it page. Now I'm currently logged in as my AAD admin account. It's a global admin in this Azure AD tenant. So the first thing you can do is to set the active assignments and eligible assignments. Now to do that, under manage here, Azure AD roles, click on that, and under manage again on the left side, click on the roles. So as you could notice here, all these Azure AD roles are all built-in roles, so you don't have to create them. What you can actually do if you're assigning a certain role, let's say you want a help desk user to be able to manage user accounts and groups. So what you can just do is just search in here user, and it will actually display all the related roles for that resource. Let's say a user administrator, and this description column is really helpful. So if you activate that, if you give a user that role, it will allow them to create and manage all aspects of users and groups. So it's a very helpful column here. I actually recommend you to read those descriptions if you're activating a role, or if you're configuring a certain Azure AD role. Okay, so being that said, let's actually click on that user administrator. Alright, so in privileged identity management, you could do two things. So you can set a user as eligible to this role. So that means a user can activate this role whenever they want to. But you will always be able to set the parameters in those activations. I will show that to you later on. And you can also set an active assignment. Active assignment means the user that have this role doesn't have to activate this role every time they want to exercise that the permissions that this role that they give us. They just need to authenticate this themselves, and they will be assigned this role straight away. Now let's try and give a user an eligible assignment of a user administrator role. So what you can do is just click on eligible assignment or add assignments here on the top. You could see that. Now it will see the resource type. I'm in the directory, and the select role that's selected already by default because we've actually clicked on that Azure AD role, and the scope is actually directory. Now select members. Let's say I have this Tony Stark user here. Let me select that and then next. Right, so here we can set the assignment type. So what are these assignment types? So as you could see, as I said earlier, the user can be eligible to this role only, or you can give them an active assignment. Now let's check on eligible first. And the next setting you would be able to set is if you want to make that user permanently eligible, or you could set a duration where that user will only be eligible for this specific role. Okay, so now let's just put something here. Let's say the user is only allowed today, and then that's a year, right? Yeah, so I think the maximum amount of eligibility that you can set within this, if you put it as a, an expiring eligibility, is 1 year. It's a year. Okay, let's click on assign on that. Okay, so now you could see here the user Tony Stark, yes, can actually activate this role during this time, and after it ends, the user won't be eligible for this role anymore. Alright, so you can actually update that, make it an active. So active means that the user will always have this role assigned to the account without the need of enabling it. So you can put it permanently assigned, or put a duration where the assignment will actually end. Let's say he will be eligible as of today, that's 8th of May, up to, let's say, August 1st. And then justification is actually it's required, so you can put here because help desk contract. Let's say he's a contractor until that date, until August, so help desk contractor. Let's save that. Alright, so that's how you could assign a user's eligibility or an active assignment of a certain Azure AD role using Privileged Identity Management. Now, in order to evaluate the security settings within PIM that will actually benefit your organization. So let's say this user administrator role, you click on settings, and here it is. You can actually customize that activation settings, the assignment settings. Let's say here, so activation maximum duration, that's 8 hours. So that means the user who have an eligible assignment can only activate that certain role for the duration of 8 hours, and after 8 hours that role will be unassigned to their user account. You can require justification, and this is really good one here. On activation, require Azure MFA. That's highly recommended, so you can set that up. And one thing here as well, you can set up approvers. So if you actually edit this, now you could see here if I require an approver. So once you tick that box and you don't assign a user here, it will set the privileged role admin and the global admin as the approvers. So I'm not just gonna do that. Go back to assignments. So you can allow permanent eligible assignments or permanent active assignment for this role. You can actually unallow that and change the expiration duration. So there's a lot of things you can set up here, including the notification as well on whatever activity or what event happens. Let's say a role assignment has been assigned, so you can get a notification email on that. Identity management, privilege, identity, I can't spell anymore, so identity management. So important things you have to remember with PIM is that it allows you to manage, control, and monitor access. So it's actually important that you can do these three things with all this access in your organization. This includes access to resources in Azure AD, in Azure itself, so that's the whole infrastructure, and actually other Microsoft online services. So those are the things that you can manage, control, and monitor with PIM. So also with PIM, you will be able to give this just-in-time access by setting up the durations of their eligibility or their active assignments, which is a very strong security concept to secure your Azure environment. Also, remember that you will need an Azure Premium P2 license in order to use PIM. So P2 license, you'll need that on the users that will be using the PIM. So users, and if you have, as I've shown earlier, approvers to monitor, they will need that license assigned. Okay. Also, the activation settings that we've actually configured, like activation duration, the multi-factor authentication requirement, the justification, and the approval. So I can, let's say here, the activation duration, the MFA requirements, justification, and the approval. So it's important to know that if you're taking the exam, these are the activation settings that you can set within a certain Azure AD role PIM configuration. Also the assignment types. You have these two: eligible and active, and both of them could be permanent or expired. So you can set an expiration date, or for eligibility you can set a duration date for that eligibility, or permanently. So that's how you could actually manage and control and then monitor through notifications. Alright, so that's all for privileged identity management. It's important to know that PIM is a very customizable feature for managing, controlling, and monitoring access to your Azure environment. So thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.